Today we're gonna talk about the very first investment property we ever bought. So this was when we were green. Now we have 2,400 rental properties, but back then we knew nothing about real estate, never bought a property at all. So you're gonna learn what we learned in that first experience. If you're new to the channel, I'm Ariane and this is my better half, Chris, and we made this channel so that good people like you can get financial freedom for yourself as well. We actually retired at the age of 27 and now we own 2,400 rental units with partner investors. If we can do it, these two silly people can do it, you can too. All right, so on to the video. Our very first investment property. Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so said prior that we did a lot of research before this. We kind of stumbled into real estate. We didn't think about that in the beginning. But we went into this thinking about our own rent. So we were currently renting our own home. And we were like, well, let's save the rent and buy a house that would rent for the same amount. So when we're paying ourselves rent, we'll be our first tenants. Because we know we're going to pay on time because it's us, right? So it was a way for us to take like the risk, the fear out of buying a rental property and having to deal with tenants for the first time, having never done it before. It took a lot of the bite out of that fear because we knew we were going to be good tenants.
Right, because one of the risks you have when you buy a rental property is your tenant might not pay rent.
Hey, if she's not paying, I'm not paying.
And if you're not paying, I'm not paying.
So by buying something that was similar to what we were renting and becoming our first renter ourselves, we removed one of the risks because we knew we would pay the rent, right? Yep. So that's what we did. Leading up to that, we actually went under contract on a few different properties and didn't get to buy them. So we submitted a lot of offers. I think at this point we were probably at our 50th offer because, we were new, we were green, we didn't know what we were doing. We just submitted a lot of offers. Some of them didn't stick, some of them did stick, and then we went under contract and didn't know what we were doing. We would get scared at the littlest thing on the inspection.
Is that a foundation problem? No, it's a small crack.
We would get scared.
The foundation!
We were under contract on a fourplex and it didn't appraise for the full amount, so we just like, peace.
Well, obviously it's not worth what you're asking because it didn't appraise.
Which in hindsight now it's worth like, 4 times more than what we had it under contract for.
Hindsight. We didn't know anything yet.
Hindsight's 2020. So you, in your journey to get your first property, you will make mistakes.
That's okay.
The main thing is you gotta take action. You gotta analyze the deals and make offers. You can't just sit there and analyze and not make an offer. You'll never buy anything. You gotta make the offers. You're gonna make the mistakes. Sometimes it's gonna be too low. Sometimes it's gonna be too high and you're gonna have to walk away from it. That is normal. Just keep going. Every offer you make, you're gonna learn something. You're gonna get better. And then eventually, you'll buy your first property after you learn and go make an offer and don't get 50 of them like we did. But that's the journey we took to get here to the point where we did buy the property. So Chris, can you tell us some more details about the property we bought?
Yeah, so we eventually found this property. We're not looking for like a dream home, white picket fence and a pool. Like we're looking for a rental property that was similar to one we were renting currently. So we bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house. It was a townhouse, so it's attached to a bunch of other units. It needed a lot of work, so we could live in it, but it was pretty...
dated.
That's the nice word. It was dated. So we actually bought this one. I think it was a repossession. So the bank had it back. We bought it off an auction site. It was like an online auction site at the time. But when we purchased it for $55,000, which if you watch our old videos, we talk about how we accumulated that $55,000 to buy it. We paid for it in cash because we had accumulated that money from keeping our gap. And the reason we paid cash was it was a way to get our offer accepted, right? It gave us a little bit of an advantage, which is something we recommend all the time is if you're going to make an offer that's clean and strong, right? So we bought it for cash for $55,000. A week later, it appraised for $85,000. So we used the delayed financing exemption to get the bank to basically fund the loan after we closed. So we got to make the offer with cash, which got our offer accepted, and then we delayed financed it after the fact, so the bank gave us our $55,000 back.
Which is an amazing thing, right? Because we didn't have to lose any money, so we had that same $55,000 to keep shopping for more deals.
Which we did. We immediately started shopping for the next deal with the exact same money.
So if that's something that you can do and you have cash to buy a cheaper property in your area,
that you know is going to appraise,
right? That you know that's the thing, right? That you know is worth a little bit more. A lot of people will accept a cash offer for a little bit less than a financed offer because cash is kind of for sure, right? It's your cash. You're putting it in here. You're not waiting for the bank to appraise it or tell you that you can't qualify at the last minute, which sometimes happens. So some people are willing to give you a discount for the surety that they can close. And usually if it is your cash, then you can have a shorter timeline, right? You could say, I'm going to close in 14 days after my inspections and everything. Whereas a financed offer
At least
takes
30.
at least 30, sometimes 45 with all the delays with appraisals and everything. So some person might be willing to part with a little bit of equity because they really need that money sooner because maybe they're buying another deal that also has a time limit, that also has a discount, right?
Especially going into a recession, because they know the longer it lasts, they might actually get less later.
Right. So if you pick up something at a little bit of a discount, it might be more likely that it appraises for more, and then you can do the delayed financing exemption.
Not all lenders understand
Not
the delayed
all lenders know about it. So if if you say, "Hey, can you do the delayed financing exemption?" and they're like, "What?" Ask another lender. Ask your investor friends for recommendations for who can do the delayed financing exemption for you. Not everyone knows about it, but I would say 20% of loan officers will. So if you just ask enough people, you'll find someone who can help you with that.
Yep. So again, appraised for 85, and we were paying about 800 in rent beforehand, 800 a month in rent. So the numbers worked out there for like the rules of thumb, the 1% rule. We bought this property believing that we were the first tenants, but it had to make sense as a rental property when we moved out. So yes, we were going to live in this property for a year. During that year, we had grand dreams of fixing it up a little bit while we were inside, which didn't happen until we moved out. So we stayed in the grungy house for the year and renovated on our way out. But the benefit there, the purpose for that was that we knew that if we moved out, it would make sense as a rental, which was the point. Like we bought a rental property and we just happened to be our tenants.
Right. And that whole process taught us a lot, right? The very first deal you buy, that was the first time we've had to hire a surveyor and an appraiser and a title company,
Inspector and
a lender, an inspector. It was such a great learning experience because before that we had no experience. And some of those vendors that we hired, we still work with today. We actually still work with the same lender today, and we've referred him to a lot of our other friends and our mastermind members. We still work with the same title company today. We still work with the home inspector, right? So it was a really invaluable experience, and it's amazing that 6 years from then, that was 2015, 2022, I guess 7 years now, that we're still working with a lot of those people, and we've learned a lot, and we've also grown with those vendors as well.
it took a lot of the fear out of it, right? The first one is always scary. Going through it once, you see what to expect the next time, so the next one gets easier.
Yeah. So it took us probably a year to actually close on that first property from the very first time we thought about buying one, right?
Right. Oh, the learning, everything from like real estate's the thing to learning through to actually getting a property.
So our very beginning was just watching free stuff like this. We were like, oh, okay, we're going to invest in real estate. So we started watching free things. That was 12 months before this closing, right? 6 months since we started, we actually started making offers. So doing the thing, taking action, actually making offers.
Putting in the reps.
Putting in the reps. 6 months from when we started taking action, we actually close on something. And this is after going under contract and out of contract and a lot of different things. We made a lot of mistakes, but we learned a lot. Now, the cool thing is, we closed on that, I think, December of 2015, and then we moved in. February of 2016, just 2 months after, we closed on our second property.
Because the delayed financing exemption gave us the money back. So we were able to use the same money to buy the next property.
Right. And it also shows you this just compounding effect, right? It took us 1 whole year of nothing to close our first, and then it took us 2 months to close our second.
And then another 2 months to close the third.
Right.
Yeah.
So it does snowball a lot, and it's not just because necessarily of money, but it's also the skills you acquire. It took us 12 months to acquire the skills to get one, but once you have the skills,
you don't lose those, right?
Right. You can buy as many as you want.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are starting out or maybe on your first one, understand that it's so worth it. But that journey, that long journey to get the first one, it is long.
But it's reusable, right? The skills come with you. You don't
Yes.
have to start from scratch on every property.
And if you still haven't bought your first property, it's normal, right? Even us, who a lot of people might consider as like really, really good at what we do, we own 2,400 rental properties now. We started like that. It took us 12 months of learning to get our first one. So you too can become this superstar who owns 2,400 units.
And you'll probably do it faster than we did.
Right. Because you're smart. You're watching this YouTube video. So on that note, make sure you click that like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be the first one to see our next videos. This is actually a series where we talk about how we retired at the age of 27. So if you haven't yet, check out that playlist. You'll see like all the previous videos, and then we have future videos. We just talked about our first and second properties, but we're actually going to tell you the whole story of how we got to how we could retire from our nice medical and software engineering jobs at the age of 27. So make sure you tune in for that.